Hi there. Recently, I've been cancelled again. So my professional life has now effectively been completely stolen from me because I practice what I preach, which is free speech and, when necessary, speaking out against the tyranny of imposed speech and EDI rules. I'll never stop working, writing, teaching, lecturing, occasionally performing, but I now have to do it differently and find little corners where I can still function. So be it. But what I want to share is a few strategies that I've discovered, and they may be useful to some of you out there. I hope so. Strategies to cope with the tyrannies that we are currently confronting, particularly in the United Kingdom. So, just a little background. This was the latest situation. A group that I'd worked for on and off for nearly 30 years, just for a few weeks or a month a year, but they dumped me. Despite being cancelled by many places, this particular place always maintained, and I've got the emails to prove it, that I was told I was always first in line when they wanted someone. I was the go-to person, and emails that said the feedback from my work had always been golden. And when I wasn't available, sometimes there were emails asking me to reconsider. But then something obviously happened. Someone said something, probably about these talks or something I've said publicly, but suddenly I'm a pariah. Services no longer required. So even if they are shrinking their project, this doesn't make sense because you don't tell someone that they are the go-to person and then dump them. And here's the thing. As with every other occasion where I've been cancelled, no one told me to my face. No one telephoned. There is no debate because these people, the so-called liberal progressives, are all cowards and they cave in to the woke agenda at the least bit of pressure. There are two things I hate. One is my intelligence being insulted, and the second is cowardice. And both occur when someone is cancelled. Ironically, this particular organisation was always banging the drums about inclusiveness, demos, democracy, free speech, equality, community. But ironically, even though I was the square peg in a round hole when it came to performing the uniform lip service in the group, in reality, I was the one who actually practiced these things because I can talk to anyone. I can work with most people of all colours, creeds, political persuasions, but the wokes who shouted the loudest about DEI are the most bigoted, bitter and condemnatory bunch of woodlice imaginable. So, despite being an old hand at this, I had a few sleepless nights. Then I did what you have to do. You do battle with it in your own mind. And at 3 a.m. one night, two people that I read many years ago suddenly came to mind. So these are my tips. One was Jean-Paul Sartre. Most people know that he said in a play, hell is other people. But what's meant by that? It doesn't just mean that other people are bloody horrible, though sometimes that might seem true too. It means that to be an authentic person and a free person, you must have faith in your own subjective world and work out for yourself what you think and feel and believe, and then live according to those lights, no matter how difficult. And if you're distracted by the gaze of other people, if you want the approval of others and you adjust your inner life and lights accordingly, then you're betraying yourself and you will wither into being a clone, a follower, a slave to the group mentality. You'll cease to exist as a free human being. Most wokes are driven by, as we know, virtue signalling. They want to appear as good people and they want group approval. So they're like the Pharisees in the temple, showing how godly they are by standing up, standing on show and praying loudly, look how virtuous I am. And who did Christ condemn? Precisely them, because they are the worst kind of hypocrite. Diversity, equality, inclusiveness, those flags that are constantly waved in our faces are driven by a herd mentality that wants to bleat its own charitable goodness to everyone and everything. And if anyone disagrees, they're thrown out of the sheep pen. So what Sartre was getting at is that this is a kind of hell. It is uniformity. And if you just think about that word, uniformity, wearing a uniform that becomes tyrannical and authoritarian and anti-free speech and thought, anti-free expression. I've worked in the arts and education all my life, and in the UK now they are both in their death throes. Our media full of propaganda, our screens full of diversity and inclusivity nonsense. Our history is being erased. Children's books are being rewritten to a woke agenda. Publishers are trophy hunting for minorities, no matter what the quality of the work. The language is being shrunk and twisted, and thought and language are being dumbed down to platitudes and propaganda slogans. The average vocabulary of children is shrinking on a monthly basis. Science is twisted to conform to green agendas and to increase the profitability of the big farmers. And those inside these temples don't even know it because they're busy chalking up brownie points and congratulating themselves on their inclusiveness, on their PC-ness. And if you follow it, you're like a rabbit blinded in the headlights of woke culture. And you can't even see that behind the lights is a juggernaut coming to squash you flat. So Sartre was suggesting, stop looking at the headlights. Go back to the hard work of thinking things through for yourself and saying what needs to be said, even if it's harsh and loses you friends. Otherwise, you will be in hell and mistake it for a flower garden. Don't seek the approval or acceptance of others, but seek those things inside yourself that will nourish and sustain you because you find them to be true. It may cost you a lot. You may end up alone, but you will be an authentic human being and not a woke clone. And the second writer for me was Albert Camus. And one of the central tenets of his work is, as you probably know, that in the modern age, perhaps without a God, the world and universe is indifferent to you. It is not unfair or deliberately cruel, it's just indifferent. And therefore life can seem like a meaningless, random chaos, an absurd thing with no values, no justice, no meanings. And when I first came across that, I thought, God, how depressing. But the more I thought about it and read, the more I realised that this is a form of freedom. If you live in an indifferent universe, there is a beautiful freedom in that. You're free to decide things for yourself, to make meanings for yourself, not what religions or politicians or ideologues or gurus or teachers tell you is true. You can listen to them. You may learn a lot from the few good ones, but you listen and then decide for yourself. You put in the hard work of thinking and feeling for yourself. It isn't easy, but then nothing worth having is easy. So if the world rejects you then, or is indifferent to what you're trying to do, but you examine it and it's true for you, you stay with it, and it will start to shine in your life, perhaps in ways that you hadn't even anticipated. And part of your freedom is that if the universe is a chaos of indifference to little old you, then you might learn to dance with the chaos, a freedom dance, and that could become a thing of joy. The very indifference of life liberates you from conformity and tyrannies of meaning imposed from outside. We live in a society which is doing that to us all the time. But you will think and breathe and live for yourself. Absurdity is the fount of all healthy laughter, and goodness knows we need a big dose of that. If you like this, do please share and subscribe, and I put the links below to a few things, including books and a couple for children's books that would make great Christmas presents. Thank you.